from their sewage treatment plant. The DEQ has worked as a strong partner with the city of Twin Falls to help us negotiate with the EPA to make it so something that's not going to cost the citizens of Twin Falls untold millions to meet that requirement. So I would greatly appreciate if you'd help support the DEQ so they can support the cities and other taxing districts in our state.
Thank you, gentlemen. For debate on the motion, good lady 2.
To debate.
Good lady has the floor to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a handout you should have in front of you, and I just want to remind you, this is extras. We've already passed the base budget for this agency, and this is all extras. The problem I have, I've been in this committee that deals with this for the last 10 years, and I've watched for the past 10 years our state DEQ insert federal code of regulations into the state code every year, more and more, saying they're reducing words by reducing whole chapters, but they're basically putting in the federal regulations where our state is now really just implementing federal law. That's what our DEQ is to the point now. That's the majority of their work. This agency has grown 135% in 3 years. And if you look at that graph, you can see what a jump that is. I cannot in good faith go back to my district and say, yeah, I'm willing to vote for an agency that has increased 135% in 3 years. And for that, I'm a red light on this one.
For debate on the motion. Hearing none. Gentleman for 4.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To debate the bill.
Gentleman has the floor to debate the bill.
I want to make a further point in support of the lady from 2. We're spending about $27 million in this state in DEQ to enforce federal law. If we didn't do that, we'd save the taxpayers $27 million. So what's happening is the federal government has issued regulations, and DEQ is going out and enforcing these regulations. Why is that on the state? That's an unfunded mandate from the federal government. I cannot support this bill.
For debate on the motion, gentleman 24.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Would the gentleman like to debate the bill?
The gentleman would like to debate the bill.
Gentleman has the floor to debate the motion.
Usually I'd just like to make a comment or two and then go home. But, you know, everybody dislikes what we're doing, and we dislike the growth that we see. And DEQ is easy to pick on because it is a regulatory agency, right? DEQ came into being because we had to deal with EPA out of Portland. And when you deal with a federal agency that's 500 miles away or whatever it is, you're pretty much at the mercy of whatever they come up with, or you can go there and try to personally intercede in whatever it is, a permitting process or whatever it is you're dealing with. And so when this all came into being, there was quite a hubbub about it. And the whole idea, of course, was to try to get an interface between the people of Idaho and the federal agency that you are required to deal with. You can't escape this. It's not going away. But if you do provide an interface, if you do try to get an intermediary in there that can actually, in times in the past, have debated's not the right word, but worked with, conceded, that got the feds to concede on some items at different times in the past to actually make it easier for Idahoans to go through this process. And so in this situation, you're dealing with somebody that we know, someone we can deal with, somebody you can call up on the phone, somebody you can walk in their office, and there's offices all over the state. And it has helped Idahoans a lot. And I know it's distasteful because we are at the mercy of the federal government. But try to understand that if we didn't have DEQ as an intermediary on a lot of these things, it would be so much more difficult for us and so much more expensive for us. So please just consider that when you look at this, and look at a broader picture. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. For the debate on the motion. Gentleman 2.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, to debate the bill.
Gentleman has the floor to debate the motion.
I was questioning whether I'd say anything until the good gentleman started talking about how we have this intermediate to protect us from the federal government and that we're under the federal government. We are not. We are the sovereign state of Idaho, last I checked in the documents. And I had an opportunity to serve on our local water and sewer board for quite a few years, and we had the DEQ representative there. And I don't want to impugn the DEQ, but in our eyes, what we had was a state representative of the federal EPA. We didn't see a measured difference. Yes, they were local. Yes, they were out of Coeur d'Alene, but they were imposing on us every federal EPA law in existence. And I don't know that we were comforted by the fact that they were out of Coeur d'Alene. I think that these budgets and the growth that we're seeing here, some of the figures I've seen that have been attributed to the Bunker Hill Mine project are just staggering. I can't vote with this in confidence. Thank you.
Is there further debate on the motion? To Laban 9.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, to debate against the bill.
Lady has the floor to debate the motion.
There is still $76 million in ARPA funds in this bill, and I guess my concern is that when the ARPA funds are gone, how does the budget that we're using those funds for, who does that fall on after the ARPA funds are gone? And again, I just want to add, federal dollars still come out of our constituents' pockets. Federal money is not just free money. And the more reliance that we have on federal dollars, the more money comes out of our pockets. And I'm a red light on this.
For debate on the motion, gentleman from 28.
Mr. Speaker, would the good lady from District 34 yield to a question?
Lady 34 yield to the question.
The lady yields.
Thank you, good speaker. Thank you, good lady. Can you just briefly explain to me why there's been 135% uptake in the last 3 years, or why there's been that more expenditure the last few years?
34.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good gentlemen. If this body remembers, we passed legislation that put into place a program that allowed for one-time expenditures to improve drinking water and sanitation systems. So the increase comes from the fact that those funds are flowing through. They are one-time. They are not for any ongoing expenses. They are intended to go out into our communities to ensure they have a safe and sustainable drinking water supply.
Gentleman 28.
Thank you.
For debate on the motion. Gentleman 14.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to remind the good body.
The good gentleman like to debate the bill.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to debate against the bill.
Gentleman has the floor to debate the motion.
Thank you. I just want to remind the body that there are parts of this that are, I think, necessary, as we do not want the federal government coming in, but I do see the concern from a lot of people, and I share the same concern that I don't think we're actually fighting back enough, pushing back enough against the federal government. We kind of tend to comply. When we were talking about the budget, though, there are a lot of things within this budget that we don't have to do. We are growing an agency in a way that, and the argument is we're trying to fight the federal government, and by giving more support here that we're fighting back, but I haven't actually seen the fight back. We keep complying with the same regulations that the federal government imposes on us, whether it's in the rules aspect, whether it's in the budget aspect. We just kind of keep jumping down that road. And there's a lot of things in this that we can actually say no to. So we could, this would be an easy one to send back and have some cuts done on. So with that, I recommend your no vote.
Hey, gentlemen, for debate on the motion, good lady from 6.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to debate in support of this bill.
Lady has the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
good friends in this body, I totally am with you on the fact that we have got to push back, and I thank the good gentleman from 14 that he's always looking at that, and I appreciate that. One thing that I want to remind the body about this one-time money that's in here. In my district, we have a lot of small rural communities that have some unfunded mandates from the federal government that they have to update their water systems. And they don't have the money, they don't have the tax base. And it's extremely critical, folks, that we get these dollars to them so that they can be in compliance, so that they have clean, safe water for their families, for their children. And we talk about how much we want to honor our families. And if we vote no on this and we say, sorry, but we're going to let the state of Washington have our federal dollars because we don't want them, so you can add those to your projects, I think we're missing the boat. And these are one-time funds that, yes, it's hard to swallow. We want to rein in these budgets. And I think that our friends on JFAC look at this very critically, and I appreciate all the work that they put into this. But I don't want my constituents and my small communities who have projects ready to go that we're going to say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to support you and your family in this situation. I think it's we support families or we don't. And so I believe strongly that this is a vote against families, a vote against clean water and everything that our families need. So please vote green.
For debate on the motion, gentleman 25.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaking in favor of the motion.
Gentleman has the floor.
Yeah, I'd like to remind everyone that it wasn't too many years ago, and back when I was on city council as well, that the state did not have primacy, did not have the ability to go in and negotiate with the EPA or make interpretations of federal laws that would be more favorable to local industry. And that this body took some time, and I can't remember what year it was, to make a decision to expand the EPA's authority to bring primacy to the state have more control over how the federal rules would be applied. And I don't like the growth of the federal government any more than anyone else, maybe a little less than some of you. But I am concerned when we talk about us being a sovereign state, because we are a sovereign state, but we also are a sovereign state that has in our Constitution that the federal Constitution is supreme. And so we have to obey the laws of the federal government, but we can obey the laws of the federal government by what people in Seattle tell us how to obey these laws, or the DEQ. And this body made a decision that DEQ is going to be the ones that we're going to manage how we implement a lot of these federal rules. And I hate to see the growth, and I know there's federal dollars in here from ARPA and different places like that, and we've been through that argument in the past, but this is an important agency, and we need to fund it. Thank you.
For debate on the motion, gentleman 31.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, to debate the bill.
Gentleman has the floor. Debate the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to echo the comments of the good gentleman from 25. Idaho does have primacy, and we elected that. We pushed for that. We worked hard to get that. And what that means is that, for an example, I'm a developer, and we'll look at a field that was a grain field, and we'll divide it up and put in a subdivision. And in that subdivision, we have to have sewer and water, and we have to make sure we've hooked the electricity and the cable, and there's just a lot that goes into that. One of the nice things about, and it's not nice, I take that back. One of the things we have to do is we have to meet with this department, and we have to make sure that everything in that subdivision is absolutely correct so that those people in that subdivision get the cleanest water and have the best sewer system that they can have. And it's nice to be able to just go into an office in Idaho Falls and have a conversation with those people and work through all the problems in that field. If it wasn't for the primacy that we have, I'd be calling Seattle or someplace else and trying to discuss a field in Idaho that that we need to have those services too. And so I would just encourage your green light. I can tell you that the committee process that we do in JFAC is immense. We sit in a room and we look at every single line item on those budgets, and we go down them and we call the directors, we call the people that are over those line items. We ask them if they really need that money. Do you really need this car? Do you really need that extra FTP? And we drill down on these budgets so good. And I want you to know that this budget was highly scrutinized. It's gone over, and I know that you have your vote, and I'm not trying to take that away. But I just want you to know the committee's worked really hard to give you the very best value that you have in this budget, and we need to make sure this agency stays in Idaho.
For debate on the motion, Gentleman 26.
Mr. Speaker, to debate, please.
Gentleman has the floor.
I think one of the issues that hasn't been brought up here is the DEQ's water quality sampling programs and the data that drives as each community develops. You can, wherever side you're on, whether you're a developer, a farmer, homeowner, there's some huge dollars behind these things. Do you have to go into a city sewer system? Is it good to put 20,000 more homes in an area on septic tanks? DEQ's programs of water monitoring drive a lot of those decisions by facts, not by conjecture. It's interesting in Twin Falls County, a major portion of Twin Falls County was a high nitrate priority area. For water wells, the nitrates were too high. Everybody pointed fingers at everybody else, and guess what? The farmers switched from gravity irrigation to sprinkler irrigation. Twin Falls is no longer a high priority area. I don't think in the conversations of pointing fingers, anybody really realized the whole issue was simply gravity irrigation and the relationship with the aquifer and percolation down. So between the lines here, DEQ is one of, besides all that's been said, DEQ is one of the agencies that lets us drive Idaho based on facts and how we're going to grow. I think they do need this money.
For debate on the motion, good lady from 2.
To debate for second time.
Anybody who wishes to debate the motion for the first time? Gentleman 26.
Mr. Speaker, point of order.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was going to ask the good lady from 34 a question. Can she debate for a second time, and then I can still ask a question? Or
I'll go ahead and ask the question. The gentleman from 26 would like to ask the good lady from 34 a question. Does the lady yield?
Lady yields.
Lady yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good lady, can you tell me just again one more time how much ARPA dollars we're talking about here?
Good lady from 34.
I'm struggling to find it in the...
Late for authority word.
Mr. Speaker and good gentlemen, I happened to look up that number just in the course of minding my own business on the floor, and it's roughly $330 million over 5 years, with the bulk of the funds going into our Water Pollution Control Fund, our Drinking Water Loan Fund, and our Wastewater Facility Loan Fund.
Gentleman 26.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for a follow-up question.
Lady yield for additional question.
Lady yields.
Gentleman 26.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, good lady, as we spend these dollars out, as the small towns all across the state utilize these dollars, we can expect to see, if we're spending $330 million over 5 years, at some point in the near future, we will then see a pretty significant decrease in the size of this budget annually, correct?
Good lady from 34. And gentlemen, be careful, because if you couldn't figure that one out, I get good lady 34.
Mr. Speaker and good gentlemen, I would say that we will have a right sizing of the budget once these additional loan dollars have gone out. The department has a long list of projects, frankly longer than the funds that are available, but it does take time, and the department has rules under which it can release those dollars. So as the projects get the green light and as they check all the boxes, yes, the dollars will be going out to the projects, and over time the balances in these funds will return to their more normal level.
Thank you, good lady.
26.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For debate on the motion for the first time. Any more games people want to play for the first time? Good lady from 2.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To debate for second time.
Lady has the floor.
Okay, I couldn't help but when I heard the comment, a vote against this is a vote against families, and a vote against this is a vote against clean water. That's a ridiculous argument, in my opinion. So we're talking 135% increase. And we're talking about this is state. We're putting this into the state. What I want to talk about briefly is share what happens when you have bloated budgets like this with local projects. And this is an example in my district, one of my 5 counties, a small little rural water district who has been going through the stages to do what it needs to do to upgrade their system. And they've upgraded their system, they followed all the rules and laws, and then all of a sudden, once they've done everything DEQ has told them, they are told, well, now you're in a different classification. And now you've got to do a whole bunch of more stuff. And it's completely a total, how do I say this? So they went from 1,000 foot of line underground, they replaced it, abandoned it, did another 1,000 foot of line underground. So they've got the same amount of distance of line underground, but DEQ decided they're going to count both lines, and that's 2,000 foot of line. So now they're in a different category. This is what happens when you start, money keeps flowing in. You've got to keep these projects going. You've got to keep, this hurts our taxpayers. I'm not sure if that makes sense to you, but we have to stop continually. We have to look at our own personal budgets at home. We need to look and go, hey, where can we cut? Where can we but that's because we're spending our money. This is spending other people's money. And I'm just asking you, we can't 135% increase. You're telling me we can't send that back and reduce that by any amount? Remember, we've already funded this agency. This is additional funding for this agency. We have got their base budget, their keep the lights on budget, they're on their way. So this is all extra money. I'm asking you to put a red light to this and have them take a second look and see if they can't but find one thing that they could remove from this budget, because 135% increase over 3 years is absurd. And for that, I ask for your red light.
Further debate on the motion. Gentleman 31.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to share a success story, if I might.
Would the gentleman like to debate the bill?
I would like to debate the bill.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you very much. I'd like the body to think about the acronym IPDES.
Good gentlemen, we need to stop right there real quick. You did not debate the first time, so we need to ask unanimous consent that you can debate the bill because we went through that process earlier. The good gentleman would like to ask unanimous consent to debate the bill for the first time. Is there objection? Hearing none, the good gentleman has the floor to proceed.
Thank you. Thank you for the reminder. Back to the acronym IPDES. Stands for Idaho Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. Not DC Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. Idaho. Goes back to the primacy that the good gentleman from District 25 alluded to a few minutes ago. I don't remember the year that this took place, honestly, but I remember the process. I was involved in it from a distance, not from this body, obviously, but from a distance. Sunday on my way here, I got a phone call from the president of a local irrigation company. And the city of Rigby is doing an update to their system currently. And they are discharging into this irrigation system under this IPDES. And he told me that that project is near completion, ahead of budget, or ahead of schedule and under budget. And the reason that they're concerned about that is because they're about to turn water into that system, but they're not concerned to the point because this project is ahead of schedule. And this is good work that this department does on a state level. This is a very important budget. It's very important to our citizens in our rural communities, even in our urban communities. And so I will be giving this a green light. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Good gentlemen, is further debate on the motion for the second time? Hearing good gentleman from 4.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To debate the bill again for the second time.
Gentleman has the floor.
I'm hearing a lot about primacy and the primacy of the state and intermediaries. There's a history of intermediaries, which I will remind you to look at World War II if you want to find out about intermediaries and how well that worked out for those that acted on behalf of the Nazis. This is a bill about EPA. When it gets down to it, this is about the EPA. If we really want to talk about primacy, I don't think anybody can tell Idaho how to manage our waters. I think we do a pretty darn good job of it because we have so much of it. If we want primacy in this, just ignore the darn EPA because it's an illegal function of the federal government. The federal government has no right to talk about this. If you want primacy, nullification is your answer. Just ignore the EPA. Let's do it by ourselves.
Debate on the motion. Gentleman 14 for the second time. Gentleman 14.
Yeah, debate for the second time.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you. I think there's a lot of things that were mentioned here, and I think there's a lot of focus on what the EPA does, what the money that has come in for clean water, which I'm all for. I think there's things that we can do, especially in the rural side within water, and I'm not actually debating against a lot of that. What my issue is all the FTPs. These are going to be the ongoing costs that we're actually accruing. It's not just the one-time cost of the federal money that's coming in to help build up our water system, but and that will go away. But it is all the FTPs, and there are some of the FTPs in there, and I didn't really want to get into the first debate into each one, but a couple of them I'd point out would be the grant officer positions, as well as the Gem State Air Quality Initiative. But all these are federal funded positions, and that's where I struggle. Is we're trying to deal with an issue where we're trying to create independency within the state of Idaho, and yet we keep adding additional positions that are federal funded positions that realistically at that point in time are we the ones trying to fight and fight back against the EPA, or are we just kind of going along with it? So my opinion is not just kill this budget so it goes away completely. My opinion is to send it back to try to get a cleaner, more concise one, maybe cut back some of the FTPs. So with that, again, I'd recommend a red light.
Further debate for the second time. Lane 33.
Mr. Speaker, request permission to debate for the first, unanimous consent to debate for the first time.
Unanimous consent has been requested that the good lady debate the bill for the first time. Is there objection? Hearing none, the good lady has the floor to debate the motion.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. Friends, this one may seem odd that I'm going to stand up actually and debate in favor of this, but I did serve as the chairman of the Energy, Environment, Technology Committee, and I went before JFAC to argue on behalf of the $330 million that we had received. And I want to tell you something about that money, that as in our committee, of which some of you sat, we tried to do that which the speaker and leadership had asked us to do at the time, which was they wanted us as the germane committee to go through it. And a lot of money was passing through our committee. We had that, and we had broadband at the same time, and a lot of money was going through this. And everything we've said about primacy, I agree. I had meeting after meeting after meeting with Director Burns and his staff individually and brought them to our committee, because it's been frustrating to think that, we just have to do what the EPA says. However, we're talking about these ARPA funds. Now, with that $330 million and with our committee, we went through a process that took a long time of how would we use these grants to help the communities. Now, you need to hear this part out because it's incredibly fascinating. We decided to kind of do a backward stair step from zero, where the communities, the cities would have to pay 0 to 25, 50, 75, and pay it back. What happened, we have little cities up north that are underwater. They're backwards with the money, the ability to meet the water quality standard from the water and sewer, because they can't bond enough. Even if everybody agreed to that, they can't possibly get enough money to do what's necessary because they are being fined by the EPA. So they are underwater and backwards. And so as one person said, we're using the government money to pay for the government to pay for the situation the government created. And I have a hard time thinking, and I myself will feel hypocritical. That's why I'm standing to explain my vote. I will feel hypocritical when we stood there, and I stood there and then argue for that money, which we knew would be ongoing until we used up that $330 million. The cities that applied for the grants are in the process of using the grants. I don't know what to say. That money, they are in the process of using that. And I guess that's part of my concern, feeling hypocritical that I would vote to take away the thing that I helped to give them. Originally, I was one of them that voted not. 3-4 years ago, I voted not to accept the ARPA, the government money, when we had the initial vote with all of it. So I just want you to understand my vote and the fact that we've got cities and communities, they're not all cities, they're counting on this money that we had already appropriated to them, and it's going to be given out over the next couple of years. We had a 5-year period to do it, and we're not to the end of it. So I am asking for your green light.
Further debate on the motion for the second time. Hearing none, will the good lady 34 close debate?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the floor debate and the asking of questions. As I have said to this body many times, I will happily answer any questions about a budget that I carry. The challenge that I hear constantly is, why are we doing what the federal government is telling us to do? The reality is that Idaho law is telling us to do it too. If we want to move away from primacy, if we want to move away from having the responsibility for these programs, then the first step is to remove them from Idaho law. Because this isn't just about whether or not we're protesting federal law. This would be a protest against Idaho law. I would note for a couple of the things that were highlighted in the budget as it was walked through. I didn't have the specific mention before, but the FTP that we left out was for the air quality planning analyst at a cost savings of over $127,000. And that was a savings on the general fund. If I'm looking at the bottom line numbers for this particular follow-through budget, it's an increase of 3.8% on the general fund, 7.3% on dedicated funds, and 0.4% on federal funds, for a total budget increase of 1.7%. The CAFCO funds, the $2 million transfer, that is a one-time expenditure that's going in to ensure our water quality is safe for the citizens of Idaho. The good gentleman from, I believe, District 2 mentioned Bunker Hill and his frustration with that project. I share his frustration. If the state walks away from that project, we are condemning that section of Idaho to be potentially polluted for future generations to the point where it can't be used by surrounding residents. For better or for worse, DEQ helps us honor our obligation to protect the resources in this state. This is a solid, fiscally conservative budget that was reviewed with care. I ask for your green light.
Thank you, lady. Date is closed. Question is, shall Senate Bill 1412 pass the House? Clerk will unlock the machine. Members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Clerk will lock the machine and record the pairs.
Shepherd votes aye. Price votes nay. Matthias votes aye. Skog votes nay.
42 ayes, 27 nays, 1 absent and excused. Majority haven't voted in favor of Senate Bill 1412.